Lore is more than just quests, stories, pieces of dialogue, and random things you can read. Lore can be expanded to the great world of prop placement. By putting things in certain places and by designing a level in certain ways with certain characteristics, one can tell a story indirectly. And while these stories are normally inferred, and while the exact details cannot be found until further lore is able to back it up, these things can make a world feel more alive, more lived in, and more entertaining. As if you understand that something happened here before, or that this looks this way because of a certain reason, you can feel more in tune with your environment, and as of such, even more immersed. This video is going to be covering how this was done to a degree in some of the environmental design in Spellbreak. Spellbreak is a great fun game that I have been enjoying lately, and as a theorist who makes theories on other games, I wanted to see if there was any way I could make a theory on Spellbreak. Luckily for me, the Spellbreak community is extremely good at lore, and they have this stuff pretty covered. I will most likely drop a couple of links to some other Spellbreak YouTubers who have made good videos on the lore. And I think it would be improper and honestly quite rude of me as someone who's new and not really well versed with what's going on to try to jump into this lore community, and make a half-assed theory that could be completely wrong and doesn't have the same amount of effort and time as these guys do. So, I did what I do best, and I looked for the lore that people don't normally look at. And to do this, you have to open your eyes and be slightly mentally deranged, like I am. And through looking through many maps and playing the game for a solid week, I think I've finally gotten my hands on something quite interesting, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. Let's get right into this video. Alright, so, looking down in the south center part of the map, we have a location called Hymnwood. Hymnwood is really going to be the star of this video, and is mainly how I was able to begin putting together some of the conclusions I did. My theory is the following. The area around Hymnwood seems to suggest that there used to be a river here, and that most of the Hymnwood ruins most likely was a city on top of water. This isn't very revolutionary if you've played in the area, but thought it was something interesting to consider. So the first thing I did was I tried to trace all of the rivers, and I'm going to put up a map on screen now that shows all of the rivers traced and the direction that I think the water is flowing in these rivers, and I'll explain that in a second. So this is a map of most likely all of the rivers and the direction the water was flowing. Now, how do I know the direction the water was flowing? Because water can't flow uphill. That's just not how water works. So by taking things such as if it's an incline or a decline, you can figure out the direction the water is flowing. And from this, we can see that definitely Hymnwood was most likely a low ground located in the mountains that collected water. If you don't know really how that works, well, in real life, mountains have a lot of runoff water when it rains. This runoff water will collect in areas such as creeks, and eventually these creeks will combine up into rivers, which will then either pool in the mountainside or will run off into a large body of water nearby. Now, how do I know that these were like rivers or something? Well, here's some footage on screen now of what the insides of the places I marked looks like. As you can see, it is quite clearly a riverbed. Not only is it much deeper into the ground than the surrounding terrain, it also has a kind of like bleached effect, which seems to suggest that it's sediment on the bottom of those instead of the normal grass. And as you can see, we can tell things such as river flow by looking at its inclines and declines. However, there is more evidence that this is water, as I'm sure you know, south of Hymnwood there is a giant water wheel connected to the small town that is located there. This seems to suggest they were using the water there as some sort of turbine to possibly process things such as wood, since we see such a large forest in the vicinity. Most likely this wood could have been used to build Hymnwood itself and the areas around it. Another thing to consider on all of this is that the area and what it's called. The area is called Hymnwood or Timberland, Timberland being the more southern area. These names suggest, and as we see, a heavy wooded presence, meaning a lot of trees and a lot of other things. This is exactly what we see in-game. And in order for there to be this many trees and things, it would need to have proper nutrition from a water source. And while yes, forests don't necessarily need to have giant rivers in the middle of them, they do need a lot of water. So perhaps the large rivers that we see are what made timber possible to grow. Now there is something I do want to mention here that I didn't get a chance to mention through the rest of the video. Something that makes this all slightly more interesting. In the newest update of Spellbreak, we got some new random unnamed locations that seem to represent different temples of different elements. In this part of the map, we get a wind temple. I don't exactly know what this means, nor do I have any real conclusions yet on what this could be, but it's something interesting to consider. Hopefully this opened your eyes a little bit to the interesting story design and map design going on in Spellbreak, and this has been Christopher Beast, and I hope to see you all next time.